because we get caught up in our heads. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We overthink, we procrastinate and stall, and then we don't get our message out there. So I help women find out how to use their voice and share it through their writing, and to ask for the sale, because women have such a hard time asking for that sale. And so I can give you the language that doesn't feel skeezy. I can give you the tools so that you can prep and prime your audience so that they're ready to receive that sale. And mostly I just help people create momentum and consistency so they are getting their message out there.
This is the podcast for the entrepreneur who wants to make a big impact, who doesn't shy away from hard work, but also wants to enjoy life along the way. Hi, I'm Heather Sager, former executive turned entrepreneur, and I've spent the last 20 years working with premium brands on sales, marketing, and communication. And I've learned that when you become a magnet with your message, you only need a hint of hustle to achieve your goals. Get ready to be inspired and ignited each week with tangible strategies on sales, speaking, marketing, and so much more. This is the Hint of Hustle podcast. Let's go. Well, hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Hint of Hustle podcast. Today's episode I am friggin' stoked about because I have been wanting to do what I'm doing on today's episode literally since I started the podcast. And I don't know, I just never did it. I just never did it. And today is the day that it's going to happen. And what is it? I am doing live coaching. Well, not live. It was live when I did it, but I am streaming a coaching call that I did with a peer to help her nail in her guest speaking topics. This is one of those challenges that I know a lot of people struggle with. And it's the, what do I talk about? Like what's the best topic? What are the most aligned topics? I'm like ready to raise my hand and become more visible, getting my face, my message, myself, my business out in front of more people. What should I talk about? And what I find is a lot of people, you hear interviews of people doing like the book tour. They have a book come out, so then they talk about that book and they go on the circuit to promote that book. It's kind of like the same thing that when movie stars have movies come out, they do the tour to talk about the movies. The question is, what do you talk about? Well, a lot of times if you're doing a launch, like you have a course coming up or a program coming out, you can do a guest speaking tour to promote that thing. But what I find more often than not is podcast hosts are not wanting to talk about the same thing that you're talking about all over the place. They're looking for fresh perspectives. They're looking for unique things. And the most important thing is they are not looking to have someone who's like reeking, let me have access to your audience so I could sell them shit. We're over that. I talk about that a little bit in the episode today. But people are just looking for refreshing conversations with experts, with entrepreneurs, whoever you are in your niche. People want to learn more about you, but more importantly, they want to serve their audiences. So the question is, what do you talk about? Is it the same thing over and over again? Do you have a variety of topics? How do you choose that topic? What angle do you come up with that topic? Oh my gosh, words are so hard for me, which is why I'm going to do more of this coaching element versus spewing on you today. So we're going to have some fun. I have my friend Kim Keel, who I met through a peer mastermind we're in together. We have this incredible group of entrepreneurs, a lot of creative entrepreneurs, and she had posted inside the group that she was looking to see, hey, would somebody jump on a Zoom and kind of just let her externally process some ideas and maybe collaborate and help each other. And quite a few peers jumped in and said, oh, I'd be happy to help. And I saw the post and I was like, ooh, I can totally help with this. This is literally what I do. And can I stream it to the podcast? And Kim said yes. So that's what was leading up to today. I purposely did not do a ton of communication in advance with Kim. I had sent her a Voxer message with some homework to prepare for today's call, but I approached it exactly how I would approach it if I were working with one of my clients. And funny enough, Kim posted about our session today on Instagram immediately after. And I kid you not, 3.5 minutes after she created that post, I got two DMs from people who follow and have worked with Kim saying, "What did Kim book you for? How can I book one for me?" So I'm thinking that this might be a thing you'll be interested in too. Stick around to the end of the episode. I will tell you how we can do exactly what I did with Kim on today's episode and help you nail your guest speaking topics and maybe even your signature talk topic. So stick around to the end of the episode, but let's jump right to it. All right, Kim, I am so stoked to have you here on the show. Welcome, welcome to Hint of Hustle, my
Well,
dear.
thank you so much. I'm so excited to see what comes up
It's going to
today.
be good. Kim and I were just chatting before we hit record, which seems to be the thing every host always says when they have a guest on a show. But we were talking, Kim and I are in a mastermind together. And a couple weeks ago, she was asking a question to the group. And I very selfishly and generously said, "Kim, can I just have this conversation with you on the podcast?" And now we are here. So we're here today to do a live, well, not really live, it's recorded, but you and I are live in the moment coaching call to help you nail in your signature topics for guest speaking because you have some big ass visibility goals this year. But before we do that, why don't you take a moment just to introduce yourself since we are on a podcast, who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of today's call.
You bet. My name is Kim Keel. I am a copy coach, a copy mentor, a direct response copywriter, and I have a specialty in writing in people's voices. So I can like step into your shoes, and when I write, I sound just like you. And I love helping women find their voice and then share their voice through their sales copy. So, writing sales copy and writing sales copy that sounds just like you is kind of my sweet spot. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada, and I have been doing this gig sort of as a solo business owner for about 6 years.
Okay, I love how you said just instantly it stands out that you are the like queen of writing in other people's voices, which you and I both know that is always a huge objection of business owners who have, I mean, we have big voices. We have very like set in
You know?
how we do it. So I love that you obviously you know that is a key piece with that. Let's talk about for you, what made you raise your hand to say, I need some help or some perspective around getting this topic nailed down or a series of topics? Talk a little bit about your visibility goals this year.
Yeah, sure. So inside the group that we're in, I put my name forward or was reaching out for some support because I have often held myself back from being visible on stages, guest expert sessions, and pitching myself to be on podcasts. So I really want to grow that area. And in fact, I really love doing group coaching sessions and speaking on stages. So why I haven't really put myself forward is obviously a block that I'm dealing with. But so I wanted to sort of force myself to get over myself and do that. But also, like I'm a copywriter. There are millions of well, maybe not millions, but there's definitely dozens and dozens of great copywriters. So I was getting all up in my head about what should my topics be because everyone else is talking about all these copywriting topics. So I was just all up in my head and I wanted some guidance for how do you actually choose a topic to pitch for podcasts or to speak on stages?
I love that you brought up this, well, both those 2 points, right? I think a lot of people resonate with that idea of, I've been building the business and like we know we need to get out there more, but I don't want to. Like, it's just easier not to. It's a little intimidating. But that piece around there are a ton of people who teach copywriting. I mean, not to make it dramatic, but the millions probably was closer. Like there are a lot. There are a lot of
Yes, there
copywriters.
are.
There's a lot of speaking coaches. There's a
Yeah.
lot of communication coaches. I don't know if you had this experience when you started your business. I sure did, where I was convinced that there was no one else doing what I do. Like everywhere I looked, I couldn't find anyone until the day I found so many people were doing exactly what I did. And then I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, and then I got all up in my head. I don't know. Did that happen to
No,
you?
because I think I was in the nonprofit sector before I moved into this online business world. And part of why I joined and started an online business was because I had discovered this field called copywriting, and I saw a few of the quote unquote famous copywriters. And
Yeah.
so I knew what was possible. And so that's why I decided to hang my hat on that particular field. So, yes, then it's like, oh my gosh, I'll never be as good as them, or who else is doing. And so then, yeah, then I do get up in my head then.
Yeah. Is it that's it's like that equal parts inspiring and intimidating as you
100%.
navigate
And
it,
it never
right?
stops. It never stops.
Yeah. Okay, so what would make our session today, what would make it a slam dunk for you? Like, what are you really hoping to walk away with from this call?
I would love to walk away with 2 or maybe even 3 potential speaking topics that I could pitch to podcasts. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that there's nuances for pitching and what their audience likes, but just to give me a bit of a roadmap for these are some 3 really unique topics that would help me stand out amongst the sea of copywriters.
Yes. Okay. I think that is a good goal. And you did your homework that I
Mhm.
gave you before our call today. So we have a track record to run with. So I'll loop y'all in that in just a second here. But go with me for a moment because I'm a big fan of visibility goals, right? We all know we need to have them, but we need to anchor them towards something. So bear with me here for as I ask you a couple questions. Talk to me a little bit around what you're hoping that visibility brings to you and your business this year.
Hmm. I'm hoping that visibility brings me more podcast listeners because I also am a podcaster. So I'd love to grow that.
Great.
Of course, I would like my visibility to grow my revenue. If I could attract a few clients, that would be fabulous. But
Great.
I also think that I do have a good message and I would love to be able to create a positive impact with my message.
Yeah. Okay, great. And with your let's talk about that client attraction piece. Do you typically work with clients one-on-one? Do you also have courses, programs? Like give me just a little sneak peek at your offer suite.
Sure. So I offer premium one-on-one private copywriting services where I will write your launch copy, your website copy. I'll develop a brand voice guide for you. Those are for business owners who are in the multi 6 to 7 figure range. Then for the, around the 6 figures to multi 6 figures, I have a group copy coaching and mentorship program, and so that's a midpoint investment. It's a 4 to 6 month commitment, and I help people write. And it's a group offer. And I don't really have anything at the bottom end yet. I don't have, a low ticket offer other than like the odd workshop that I might host.
Yeah. And you have a variety of opt-ins and for your business. I saw that on your kit you sent over to me. What would you say are your like top for any podcasting or guesting that you've done at this point? What are the top quote unquote offers that you have put
So
out?
I'm the world's worst copywriter because I don't I don't practice what I preach. Uh, so I, for the longest time, had the worst lead magnet ever, and I have only just recently added in two. And I was just looking at the data the other day, in fact, and so I have one that's a sales copy scorecard and one that's a brand voice workbook. And the brand voice workbook is newer, but it is already getting more interest and more clicks.
Cool. And I know it's newer, but have you found that either of those have led into your, let's say, group coaching program?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay. It's one of those things to kind of keep in mind. Are you open that through our conversation today, if I notice that maybe there's a topic there that could be a great resource to pair with it,
100%.
would you
Yeah.
okay, cool. I it's kind of hard when we there's a lot of us right that are business coaches or sales coaches or messaging coaches. What you said of being like a really bad on doing those things yourself.
Yeah.
Same, we
Yeah.
all do that. It's a lot of it too, is right because it's so ingrained in how we operate. It's different than teaching it and learning something for the same time. I like the parallel I always use is I do not drive like I did when I was 15 and a half and learned how to drive, right? When you put your hands on the wheels at 10 and 2 or whatever they tell you, and
Yes.
you check the rearview mirror every 10 seconds, or all those types of things that you do on autopilot. You do that to learn how to drive. But now that we're adults, I mean, we can argue around the safetyness of our driving skills, but the idea is you don't think about it, right? It's second
Yeah.
nature, but you would be able to teach that without the process from the beginning.
Yep. And I find
So,
it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And so,
totally.
like, I can do for you what you're gonna do for me because I can see it in you, but I can't see it in myself.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is why we both have jobs, right? Okay, so what's fun with this is even though some of the questions I'm going to ask you, you're going to laugh. You're like, I do this all the time. It's still
Yeah.
interesting to go through for yourself and to have that clear moment. Okay, so what I heard you say, we want to drive more people to your podcast. We want to grow your list to become more clients, right? So be really intentional growing that for one-on-one, those high ticket clients. Also the group coaching program. And then you also maybe do you do affiliate stuff? Do
Uh,
you ever promote affiliate
I mean,
programs
I
or
have dabbled in it, but my list is very, very small. So,
okay.
you know, yes, but
So getting people into your world, priming them for a client match fit, whatever type of program that is, and potentially offers down the
yep.
road. Okay, I think that's great. And then the third thing that you had said is that you know you have a damn good message and you want to make an impact. So would it be fair to say that you would like to be one of those industry people that people look up to and are inspired by?
As, barfy as that makes me feel, yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to say. I wanna be a big deal. I want to be
Yeah.
known. And it is super weird to say, but also it's a required, thing to own if you do want people looking at you as an industry
Mhm.
authority, and you have an obligation, in my opinion, to claim that role if you truly wanna make
Hmm.
a bigger impact. So, are you up for it,
Hmm.
girl?
Yeah, just you saying, like, that I have an obligation to do it, like, that is a great shift.
Yeah. It's because otherwise, the people that need to hear your message, they're not gonna do it, right? And also, if you don't act as if you are a big
Hmm.
deal, you are definitely gonna play smaller, right? You're gonna tell smaller stories, you're gonna go straight to the how-to and the tips, and you're not gonna take up space on those podcasts. You're gonna speak quickly and, like, get in and get out and be a little bit more transactional, even if it's not your intention.
Yeah, I think you're bang on right there.
Yeah, yeah, all right, we've done this
Yeah.
before. Okay. So, let's talk about a couple of things. So, when I when I think about topics, I think a lot of people are so focused on how do I get the right topic? How do I get the perfect topic? And my audience will know I say this all the time. There is no right, there is no perfect. It's honestly what we're excited about and is it aligned to our goals and our audience. So I look at a couple different things for us to figure out like a sweet spot with topic ranges. I'm less worried about you developing that one talk, although I'm a big fan of a signature talk. Hell, it's my core program and what I teach. But what I find for the majority of people I work with is the signature talk isn't really developed until we vetted out some damn good topics and the people tell us, holy shit, that's your signature. So I like to look, there's kind of three lenses that we're going to dive into. We're going to talk about the person and the problem, right? Which you know that like the back of your hand, but we're going to articulate it a little differently today. We're going to talk about um, two things about you. One is your unique perspective. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions to dive into some stories today. And then the third we're going to talk about is this might be a little weird, but your passion.
Mm.
Like what fires you up that you would get a little riled up and on some side tangents should it come up. Like we have to have
Okay.
that fire piece of the thing that makes you really passionate about. It might not be the topic that is most sexy or what your audience is like spot on to their problem, but that
Mm.
fire, that passion, that's the magnetic quality where audiences will literally tell you, I never thought this was a big deal, but you're so fired up about it. I'm now too.
Okay.
And sometimes we have to do that for our audience. So passion, problem in person, and
Okay.
perspective. Those are the three. Imagine this like a Venn
Mhm.
diagram. Those are the three things we're going to play with to figure out your sweet spot topic here in the middle. And like I said, I think there's going to be a couple of them that we can pull from. Okay. So talk to us a little bit about us, me and my groupies in the background here.
Super
Talk to
fans.
us a little bit about the person that you serve. You mentioned that a little bit with like thresholds of the revenue in their business, but talk about them. But more importantly, I want to know what are the big problems that they're having when you kind of cross into their world.
So I think that the biggest problem that I'm serving with the couple of different audiences that I serve is that they're a bottleneck in their business. They're not creating or writing the copy that they need to. And for the 7 plus figure business owner, it's because they have so many business obligations and they just can't get to all the volume of copy that they need to write, but they're not willing to release the reins of that and delegate it because they don't know how to explain how to write in my voice, or they don't know how to trust that other people will be able to write in their voice. So I can help them either with creating a brand voice guide for them to help them articulate that, or I can actually take that copyright off their plate so that they are no longer that bottleneck. So the other group that I serve are women in business who are struggling to write because we get caught up in our heads. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We overthink, we procrastinate and stall, and then we don't get our message out there. So I help women find out how to use their voice and share it through their writing, and to ask for the sale, because women have such a hard time asking for that sale. And so I can give you the language that doesn't feel skeezy. I can give you the tools so that you can prep and prime your audience so that they're ready to receive that sale. And mostly I just help people create momentum and consistency so they are getting their message out there.
Okay, that's great. So the this is no surprise, right? As a copywriter, you know your person, you know their problem. This is typically the thing that is best vetted. For anyone listening, kind of back to this later, what I find with most business owners, I would be curious for you too, Kim. Most business owners, they have a very hard time articulating the problems of their audience. So this one here, we're going to breeze over because you know this really well. However, it is typically not so easy to find out what they think the problem is versus the true problem. There's a dance within that.
Mhm.
We're not going to get into that today. But you have vetted. Here's the thing that I want to point out around your problem. And you know this. You have two different people.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that you'll want to make sure that you're super clear on is when you create your topics, we can do it in one of two ways. You can create your topic kind of titles and descriptions to target that specific person
Mhm.
so that you would be like, for example, let's say you're going to be focused more on the multi 6 to 7 figure person. The volume of podcasts or guest speaking opportunities are going to be fewer for that kind of business owner. But guest speaking, let's say in a mastermind or in a group coaching program, you're going to have a high return on clients from that.
Right.
So it would probably behoove you to have a topic really targeted for
Hmm.
them, but that's probably not going to be to the masses on a
Yeah.
podcast. Now, the nuance would be is if we find a couple topics that transcend both, you can customize the interview or the talk for those two different lenses because they are very
Yeah.
different problems. So for you, we can approach a couple different ways. Let's add in the passion and perspective. But that just for you, you already know this, customizing your message to the problem. But what we bring in from your stories and your client examples, that'll help really shape that. Let's get in. I'm just curious on your perspective. Let's dive into a few of your stories. So, which let's lean into your group coaching program. Let's lean into that
Okay.
audience, right? Because when I think podcast, would you agree that's more of the well, I guess not. I mean, maybe it depends. Do you have one of the two audiences that you prefer to speak to primarily?
I think most of the content that I create is for that mid-tier woman like me,
Yeah.
who is just trying to get out of her own way and get the copy out there. Uh, and I would just like it to be easier to welcome more people in and sell them into my program. I don't
Yeah.
create any copy geared at that higher tier audience. It's primarily referral based. But I
Okay.
like to
This
have some content so that, it builds know, like, and trust. So when they're checking me out, they're like, "Okay, she's legit."
Yep. Okay, this I'm glad we went down this road because I think this is really This is a trap I think that a lot of service providers who are branching into courses or coaching or more scalable options, this is where they face. A lot of times, people who have done the higher end one on one, or maybe not even high end, right? Maybe they needed to raise their prices, but they all their copy and everything is written to the high end person, which is a different problem than what we're talking about. And what we want to think about is if you're using visibility, you can do it for one of two things. You're either using visibility to skyrocket your authority, or and you're using it to grow your audience. And I think a lot of people are like, I want it to do
Mhm.
everything. But what I force people to say is, what is the one singular business objective that you are going to measure your success off of? And for you, I think it would be audience growth slash to book more of the scalable clients. Is that true?
100%, yeah. I'm
Okay.
maxed out on the
Otherwise,
one-to-ones, I need that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you don't need any more clout. You don't need any more leads because you're getting them off of referrals. As you said, it's always nice to have the clout
Mhm,
that I have those things, but you're not struggling to get clients right now. So we're not going to build a visibility strategy to go after those people. Those are going to come to you organically and you can customize anything
'kay.
for it. So what we have to do is keep our eyes on the paper of how do I speak to that larger general
Mhm.
audience that are more of a fit for my program that I'm scaling. Okay, perfect. So let's think about stories in your experience. What has shaped your perspective? You say that you are like gangbusters at helping people like nail their voice, right? You do that for others, but I want you to focus on you teaching others to get over that hump and get started with writing. What are some of the experiences that you've had that have shaped how you do that?
So, I'm glad you sort of asked me to think of this before we came on today, and I would say, I come from a scientific background. So, I have a degree in environmental science and communications, and I always saw a huge problem with we're never gonna solve this environmental crisis unless we can quote unquote dumb it down, make it more digestible and understandable for people. Because if people don't understand it, they won't connect to it. If they don't connect to it, they won't solve it. So that is like my core belief is helping people take action by giving them a simple message. So that's sort of one element of it. I also have worked in the philanthropic sector for a number of decades, so that socially minded, mission driven purpose and passion is really important to me. And you can't live your mission if you can't get your message out. And then along the way, I've had jobs where I was a park interpreter, where I had to communicate these really complicated, complex environmental issues. But I dressed up, I did musicals, I created like entertaining skits, like little edutainment is what we called it, but sang and danced and made the learning of this complicated topic super digestible and easy to understand. And I've been able to sort of translate that into copywriting. And that's often a piece of feedback that I get all the time is that, wow, you really teach this in a way that is so simple and makes it easy to understand.
Yes. Okay, I love that. Have you talked about these experiences before with your audience?
Uh, I mean, in like close knit little workshops, yes. It's like a throwaway sentence in my podcast intro, but no, I've never really done like a full episode
Yeah.
or,
And
yeah,
prior to me asking the question, that was side note, that was part of the
yeah.
homework, right? Of asking this question around what experiences. Had you considered or connected the dots on this
I
before?
mean, yes, but not to the point where I, like, actually talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna use a little like side tangent case study piece right here. Are you familiar with Jerisha
Oh,
Hawk?
yeah.
Okay, if y'all don't know, go look at her on Instagram, Jerisha Hawk. She's an awesome teaching people how to create more scalable, high ticket group coaching programs. I can't remember where I first heard her speak, but it was on a podcast years ago. The reason why I bring this up, part of her perspective that she brings, she talks about curriculum and the power of curriculum and having a like clear cut curriculum. I'm going to say this word seven
Mhm.
times because that is one of her core
Right.
words, core beliefs that people must understand in order for her program to make sense. But she talks about on podcast her experiences as an engineer, how she started as an engineer. You came your head nodding ferociously. You see where I'm
Mhm.
going here. Having that little credibility piece that I don't think she even worked as an engineer very long, but just dropping that she had that experience instantly builds confidence as an audience going, holy shit, she was in, I don't know what kind of
Mhm.
engineering, I don't even remember, but
It
honestly, it
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
remember
Yeah.
or it doesn't matter because I remember that about her, which ties to one of her core elements, which is curriculum structure. So for you, paralleling what you just told me, when you actually did a really great job. Good job you thinking about this in advance and succinctly putting this into 3 points. But your scientific background, that piece of communication, and whether it's in the environmental piece, give or take, right? You just add that in. But that piece around scientific background with communication, people find copywriting difficult. People know that there is some kind of science behind it, but they don't want to
Mm.
learn it. And they feel like if I don't learn it, I can't be successful. You bringing in that
Mhm.
that is how your brain is wired, and you also have the gift to simplify it. Oh, that takes like a
Mm.
huge weight off of me as a listener. So you weaving that in, ooh, that's really powerful. Is it your lead topic? Maybe, maybe not, right? But that is a key talking point that really could serve you in that sticky factor of building trust with your
Love
person,
that.
especially you as a
Yeah,
teacher,
love it.
right? Yeah. Okay, philanthropic, social, that hit on what you said, that you're here to make an impact and a mission in the world, but you also know so is your
Mhm.
person. Remember at the top of our conversation how I told you you had an obligation
Yeah.
to step into the spotlight?
Yes.
Could you see yourself saying the similar something to
Oh,
your
I say
person?
it all the time on my Tuesday mornings in my group coaching program. So yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that piece there, I find this works really well for me. My background, like my big start of speaking, it came from
Mhm.
nonprofits. And I have the story of the nonprofit my family and I founded around my mom. I don't tell it all the time, but a lot of times when I'm guest speaking, I will bring that in because it connects me to my audience on that service led piece. I have a phrase that I use all the time. Some people are drawn to the spotlight, others are called into it.
Ah.
That is my, like, give you chill
Mhm.
goosey bumps face, but that is what separates me from what people would call the bro marketer
Yeah.
speaker coaches who are more scripted. I'm here to help people get their message that's on their heart out in the
Mhm.
world and make money
Yeah.
doing it, right? Separates. You have a very similar thing. So that philanthropic piece, we gotta find a story within that that could really help paint that
Mhm.
picture. Because part of your job on these podcasts is to make people feel really good and muster up that sense of service. I'm very curious around this edutainment piece. There's probably going to be something within that, but I would imagine there's things that we can pull from. But you definitely well, obviously you have great perspective to bring. Is there anything that you teach on in particular that you feel like could really dial in one of these elements and pair it with the primary problem your person has?
I mean, the I think the big discovery that I made when I came into this work was that these copywriting formulas exist. The frameworks that are used in direct response copywriting. And I when I was a fundraiser, like I knew that there had to be a formula for writing this ask letter, but I could never find it. And then when I switched over into online business, it was like, oh, here's what I've been looking for all along, these recipes, these copywriting formulas. And now, like, I'm thinking of like the science of copywriting, the chemical formula, like it's all kind of like coming together for me right now. But just how to put together a persuasive argument, but layering over it your voice so that it doesn't sound cheesy and sleazy because it's grounded
Yeah.
in your personality, your voice, and your words. But it was the discovering the copywriting formulas that just was like, oh, everything is so much easier once you know all this.
Yes. Okay. So okay, I'll just be fully transparent and a little vulnerable here. That is the thing that intimidates me the most is I know there are copywriting formulas. Now, I will say caveat here. I'm a manifester by human design. So part of being a manifester is I oftentimes can't articulate like why I do what I
Mhm.
do or like even how it's happening. It's on autopilot. I have to go back and study it to be able to teach it. I've gotten very good at that, but uh, formulas freak me
Mhm.
out. I know I need them, but they freak me out because as someone who is a very external
Yeah.
processor, as someone who is naturally good at speaking, I've worked my ass off for it, but I am naturally good at speaking. Formulas give me the like all of a
Yeah.
sudden I'm awkward and I don't know what to do and I find myself like like a snake wrapping around me, choking the life out of me. It makes it very hard for me to create anything with that
Right.
structure. But I know that structure is necessary to get the results I'm after in the scope of copy,
Mhm.
right? So I wonder, I even though I have some very unique things that make me super weird and special, I don't think that problem is just me. I would imagine a lot of people struggle that they want the structure, but they feel choked by the
Sure.
structure. Is that something that you've discovered?
Uh, no, but I can see it as you're explaining it to me. I think because a lot of the people who I work with, they don't even know where to start writing.
Mm,
They don't even
mhm.
know how to get that message out yet. And so coming up with what to say is the problem. And when they can look at this formula, it actually gives them a lot of soothe. And they're like, okay, just going to start attention, interest, desire, action. And then you like rework it and stuff. But as I'm a manifesting generator, so I hear what you're saying. And I do have
Yeah.
some other clients who they couldn't do this work either because of that formulaic structure. So I see what you're saying.
Maybe that's a nuanced difference too, right, between your 2 categories of
Mhm.
people you're so focused on, right? Is I probably wouldn't be in that in the more of the mass thing. I would probably be in the latter category of the person wanting to
Yeah.
hire it out. Okay, so with that point, is one of your main messaging points when you think about guest speaking is the idea of the formula, the science. Is that a big part of what you typically talk about when you are on podcasts or when you are guest
I
speaking?
think to date I have used that, like, what are the formulas that can help you write faster? How do you reduce overwhelm when you're writing? Well, it's by using these copywriting formulas.
Yeah.
So that's what I have kinda done, but I think that's also where I haven't been able to find my real differentiation and that passion that you talked about
Yeah.
before
Well, I'm
that would draw
curious.
people
Hello,
in.
scientific, science degree in environmental and
Yeah.
communication,
Yeah.
right? Of maybe a borrowed industry
Mhm.
reference, and maybe a metaphor or analogy to kind of bring it
Mhm.
over. But I would be curious when you think about what's in your group coaching program, what are some of the types of formulas that you use or types of things like do you teach sales pages? Do you teach newsletter? Like what kinds of copywriting are you teaching? Is there a category? I'm going somewhere with this. So word vomit on me for a second.
So I the primary goal is on sales copy because I want
Okay, cool.
women to ask for the sale and to ask for through writing, but it also translate into speaking as well. And then so we focus on sales pages, social copy that's going to have a conversion element to it, emails that are sales emails, but also the nurture emails that help keep that prospect really warm and primed and ready for when you are ready to launch. So it's
Perfect.
really comes
Okay.
from a sales perspective.
Okay. And with your, I would imagine in your program, you have like a signature method that you walk people through, or is there a process? Or give me a little bit more around either your framework or you don't have to teach it, right? But tell me what you use to teach more effective sales through those
So
platforms.
it's diving into your voice of customer, it's understanding your voice, it is layering over top of it like that sales copy formula. So it's kind of those are the three areas. It's the research, it's the voice and personality,
Okay.
and then the words.
It's okay if the answer to this is no, but do you have like a method or a framework that you reference as the backbone of your
I mean, I
program?
call it the joy of copy method, but it's not really like I don't have a diagram. It's not, it's just kind of loosey goosey.
But I don't have a
I don't have a
diagram.
diagram.
Okay, so in that method, does it incorporates those things of like layering your customer data, your voice, and then the sales
Yep.
copy formula? Okay, great. Where I'm getting at here is when you think of whatever topic you land on or topics you land on, of you knowing, for lack of a better term, I call this your greatest hits,
Mhm.
of knowing, like think about like an album. You're gonna have a variety of things that you talk about over the decades you're in business. But what we really want to do is nail it down, regardless of what stage we're on, what podcast we're on. We need to know what our greatest hits are because we want to program the script of what other people say about
Okay.
us. Okay. We want to write the script of how other people talk about us. And what happens is a lot of times when people do guesting is we start talking about all these different things. And then we're surprised when people aren't showing up or signing up or talking about us. We want to be remembered, we want to be recognized, we want to be
Yep.
referred. And the way we do that is nailing in the language we use on repeat. So for you, I want you to like look at that kind of framework without a graphic. And I want you to ask yourself, what would it take for me to dial this in and own and be excited talking about it?
Yep.
Doesn't mean that you need to do a full thing about it, but for you to feel excited sharing your joy of copy,
Mhm.
whatever you call it, right?
Yep.
Because we want to be, you need to hype that up. Otherwise, it's not hyped, right? So going back to my reference with Jerisha, I said curriculum like a bajillion times. That click for
Oh,
you
yeah.
of she is known for curriculum.
Well, I knew exactly where you were going when you brought her up. I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going," because
Yeah.
I know that that's what she talks about. Mhm.
Yep. That is for sure a front runner on her greatest hits. Now, whether or not she's intentional with that, I would imagine by now she's intentional with it, but we need to write the script for what we want to be known
Hmm.
for. So circling back for it, you said, all right, the science background, um the kind of that communication piece and having the formulas. Let's we've talked about the problem, we've talked about perspective, but the question being is, are you like geeked out excited about talking about those kinds of things around bringing formulas to life, distilling their nerves or apprehensions around copywriting through formulas? Like, are you excited about
I
that?
mean, I am. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Pat, I
Yes, I
am.
am. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's like the gut check, right? Is we could talk a lot about other things, but if you're not geeked out excited for it, I mean, other people will say, "Yes, give me the formula," but they're not gonna be, like,
Yeah.
enthralled, excited about the formula, but if you are, that's what
Mhm.
matters, okay? Um, okay, so I think we can run with that type of thing. Let's think about another couple things. I wanna write a look at some of your ideas. Do you mind if I read a few of these out loud that
Yeah,
you shared,
sure.
in your
Mhm.
prep doc? I asked Kim to come up with a couple different ideas of topics. Are these ones that you have presented before, or was this a brain dump of
This is the
ideas
one in my
preparing
one
for a call?
sheet that you're looking at? Is that yeah.
Yeah,
So, no, I haven't presented all of these. Definitely like the 5 tips to make your copy more readable, the Hello framework for writing about pages, and yeah, those copywriting formula stuff I have all pitched and got on and got off and
yeah.
want want. Uh, so I would also love to share a bit more of my story or my journey to how I became a copywriter. Um, yeah, so I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah. Okay. These are good. I'm going to read a couple of these. So she, as you mentioned, 5 top tips to make your copy more readable. I think everyone has one of these in them. These are really great for like if you're doing like a guest blog or like a guest post inside someone's group. Those could be really great. In my opinion, you have way more to offer on podcasts than this as the lead
Okay.
topic. I think this is completely undervaluing and it's literally putting you in the category of a sea of other
Yeah.
copywriters. So I'm going to tell you no. You're not allowed to lead with this. Now, what I will say, you know how, of course, you're going to know this because you're a copywriter, but when someone writes an episode description and they put the little teasers of what's coming, I would be okay with one of the teasers being and the top 5
Right.
tips to get more whatever from blah, blah,
Sure.
blah. Like that for sure could be a like hook within
Yeah.
the topic. But this, Kim, you are bigger than a 5 tips
Okay.
topic. So no, cross that one
Great.
out. Okay, now the second topic that you wrote down was find your copy voice, how to write in a way that sounds like you. Okay, let's gut check this
Mhm.
idea into our three lenses. It brings in for sure the problem your people have, right? If your main group of people were after, they're having a hard time getting their voice into words, getting started with it, getting things out consistently. So the finding their voice, how to write in a way that sounds like you, that
Mhm.
fits,
Yep.
right? The second thing is, does this bring in a unique perspective of you? So think about your Rolodex of history. Do you have unique stories, unique perspectives around the importance of voice and the importance of finding your own voice and how you've helped people find their voice?
I believe I do. I have a background as a singer and a performer, so I have a musically trained ear, which I think is
Cool.
why I can write like someone else with very little
Yes.
effort. And then I've
Yeah.
reverse engineered how to do that so I can yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So you see how we just did that? We double checked. Yes, it's a relevant problem to the group you're
Mhm.
after, not just your high ticket group, like
Yeah.
the other group we're after. We've double checked that. Okay, now you have some stories you could pull from. which your homework assignment is going to actually get those stories
Right.
out so you can say them clearly, succinctly, and connect it to a topic. The third piece, are you like super jazzed up, passionate about the voice, the copy voice, your unique voice, this
I
topic?
think the, like, amplifying your voice, sharing your voice, and feeling confident that you're writing in a way with personality, because I know that that's a real sticky point for a lot of women. So, yes, I
Yeah.
think the answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna say highlight this. This is an approved
Okay.
topic. I'm gonna encourage you to think about the title of this
Yes,
topic. Use your copywriting
100%.
brain to sexify
Yeah.
this a little bit. But here's my instruction for you on this topic. I'm gonna go back to your three objectives. Your objectives, right, were number one, more podcast listeners. Number two, grow your revenue through clients. And number three, clients meaning group coaching program. We're gonna lean into that. And number three was to create the impact. This one here, you can hit all three, but I want you to lean into the third. That third around that impact. This topic here is where you get to get on your soapbox a
Mm,
bit and really ramp up that the obligation to use your voice. So this one's more of a yes, we're going to talk about the how to like find your voice, have maybe some tips, some
right.
techniques, some pieces, but your lead in is this is a you getting them jazzed up to like summon the will to
Yeah.
do it.
Okay.
Right? So this is almost like your motivational, like you earned your spot. Like I did with you, you take up
Yeah.
space, right?
Yep.
That's this topic for
Great.
you.
I'm on board with
So
that.
in your
Yep.
mind, categorically, you're going to have like, this is my feel good, get riled up, share some stories. But I want people leaving like fired up. Where sure, the how to, those pieces, they're going to learn more. Maybe you have the freebie, right? Your freebie of your voice
Mhm.
guide could work
Mhm.
with that
Yep.
great, right? The details they can get from the guide and you can tease
Yep.
them a bit. But that topic is more about taking up space and their duty to need to share.
Love it.
How does that
Feels
feel?
so good because I was like, how do I even begin with this? But you've really made it concrete for me. Yeah.
Yeah. What I like to look at is I use a lot of metaphors as you're gauging for me. I like to think about like a spotlight where we look at a topic and then we determine where are we going to shine the light on this topic. And where most people, when they would see this, is I'm going to read it again find
Yeah.
your voice, how to write in a way that sounds like you. Where the light is shown is on the
Yeah.
teachy. Let me give you the tips. Let me give you the tactics. Let me give you the list. Let me teach you how to do it. I am, if you're all just listening to this, I'm pretending like I'm holding a spotlight and I'm shifting it. Here we go. I'm going to turn it to the left versus to the right. And the left is why does this
Yeah.
matter? I don't care about the how. I don't even care about the what right now. I want to know why does this matter? And that's where the spotlight is going to stand for you on this topic.
Great.
Yeah. And how you make the opt ins go fiery crazy on this one is you make the opt in the
Right.
detail, right? Give them the framework, give them a system, give them a measurement, give them something that's going to help them take action on this now that you got them
Great.
fired up. I definitely see that this one can have your storytelling in it for sure. Is there any stories that come to mind for you around this topic?
Around voice,
Mhm.
um, I nothing concrete that is coming to mind. Um, well, I mean, just the fact that like I'm so tired of seeing panels of white dudes speaking and mansplaining at me, and I'm a Gen Xer. I am sandwiched and I am craving to hear people with my experience. And so that's really sort of like my submission is to like amplify the voices of Gen Xers and help them take the
Yeah.
stage. Yeah.
Okay. Just side note, just the fact that you just hit on that Gen X piece with voices, I don't hear anyone talking about that. So that write that
Okay.
down as that's a unique perspective. Who's talking about? Well, side note, Nate. I can't remember his name. He's a comedian. I found him on my TikTok or something. He's hilarious. But he is a cusper, which is my husband and I are too. Like we're right
Yeah.
there, the elder
Elder
millennials.
millennial.
My
Yeah.
husband will not categorize himself as that. Right? He's like, I was born in '81. I am not a millennial. I'm like, technically you are by like in that year. Anyways, Nate, he had this whole bit around how he's like in the middle and he did this whole like funny thing around the different generations but this forgotten
Yeah.
piece. Anyways, I generation things, a lot of people give a lot of hype around millennials and Gen Z and then boomers. But there is a whole room to play. You don't have to do a whole thing around this. I don't think this is a topic, but I definitely think this would be a little hot bullet point when somebody like talked about of why either Gen X or the cuspers are overlooked, but have the most to offer
Yes.
in different perspective or something.
I did record a podcast episode about like Gen X women and why we need to hear more. And I recorded it a year ago, and it is like one of the most popular episodes that I have.
Okay, well, that should tell you
Yeah.
something. So maybe that actually, maybe it is a topic.
Okay.
Which, side note, I think that would be a fun topic. I would have you come back on the show and actually talk about
Okay.
that specifically. Because a lot of my audience, right? They're not super
No.
young. They're also wouldn't classify themselves as like super old, although I feel pretty old. That and the like, I think that has a piece of it. So, okay.
Okay.
Side note, we're going to go off on a tangent here because you
Okay.
brought it up. Twofold. You said that your number one objective was to drive more podcast listeners. What I want you doing is you after a call today, as you're really getting into these topics, I want you to say, what podcast episodes do I have that to relate to this story or this teaching
Okay.
point? So that way you can easily slip
Oh,
in, oh yeah, I get all fired up about this. In fact, one of my number one episodes is all about
great.
this. Shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll send you the direct link.
Got it. Love it.
Do that all the time. You can use ManyChat if you want to set up an automation to it. I'm not fancy like that yet. So I want to have conversations with people who hear me on
Yeah.
podcasts. So I'm sometimes will do like a secret podcast playlist for people who listen to me on a specific podcast. I'll say, hey, I'm going to curate a list of episodes that perfectly pair with what we talked
Oh,
about today.
cool.
Shoot me a DM on Instagram, and then boom, you're now in conversation with them. And two, you now get them onto your show.
Yep. Love it. And
So you can
I
connect the
am
dots
low
on
tech
that.
as well. Like the
Yeah.
simpler the
So I'm
better.
just
Yeah.
like, hello, it's a DM. I can
Yeah.
answer you. It's fine. I do not have
No,
millions of
exactly.
followers. So you can try that piece. But the other thing that you said when you light bulb clicked that's one of your top episodes, that's another way for you to look at is go through your
Sure.
episode history and say, what other topics are people talking about? And then run through those same three filters we
Sure.
talked about today.
Love it. That's great.
Okay. So we so far have two topics for you. We have something around the science/formula. We need to come up with what the angle is around that. So I'm going to circle back to that in a second. We know that copy voice one, that one is for sure. Let me read a couple
Yep.
of these other ones. You had me at hello, framework for writing about pages. Tell me a little bit more about
So
this one.
this is the about page is one of the hardest pieces of writing for most of us, and yet it is the second most visited page on your website.
Yeah.
And so I have created a formula, my own recipe for how to organize the information on that page. So it's a
Yeah.
very tactical training. It's more like a workshop,
Okay.
probably. I have done it as a
Yeah.
podcast guest episode, but it was difficult to walk through the formula.
Yeah. So what I would do is I think that actually is a very specific problem, a very sexy problem, and also hell of a creative framework on the hello framework for an about page. Because the fundamental problem we're solving is why is it so damn hard to talk about
Ah,
ourselves? Write
so
that down.
smart.
That is the title of it. Why is it so damn hard to talk about ourselves? I have this in my little repertoire. We do it in different ways. You can steal it, run with it. But that piece, I'm going to borrow exactly what I said before with the spotlight
Mhm.
metaphor. On this right now, when you're approaching as a training, you're shining the light on the technicalities in the framework. I want you
Yeah.
to move the spotlight over and say, for podcast interviews, we're going to talk more about why this is so damn hard, but why it's important to master it. And then if they want to, you can give them a couple tips and topics, but then topics. Words are so hard, kid. Tactics. And then you can have a resource that goes into your one
Yes.
page hello formula for writing.
So smart.
That would be a killer option.
Love it. I'm in.
Yes. Okay. So we know for sure the voice one is awesome. The hello framework for sure. Why is it so damn hard to talk about ourselves? Okay, I'm going to read this one. The power of copywriting formulas to cut down time and increase creativity in your writing. Okay, so this one hits on where we want to go, but we're going to go a different angle. So talk to me a little bit now that we've been rambling now for 40 something minutes. Now that we've done this to voice and we've done this to the about page piece, where's your brain at when you think about what you could bring to the industry around formulas or the power of formulaic copywriting?
Well, I think this is where that sort of science and simplification comes in. Um, but to be like, now that we've just like, I've gotten so excited about the voice and, you know, why it's so hard to talk about ourselves. Like, this feels a little bit more wah wah.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
passion, did the passion still
Yeah.
go down on
Yeah.
it? Yeah, because your passion skyrocketed on those
Yeah.
other 2.
Mhm.
I mean, just visually, you lit up, your whole body language changed, your tone of
Yeah.
voice changed when you got excited about those 2. You just saw the possibilities
Yeah.
in your eyes. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, so that tells you on those rating scales, I think the formula one is definitely one of your greatest hits, but in terms of you being fired up to do a podcasting
Right.
tour, you know where you
Yeah.
need to lean. Now, here's the cool part is these are your greatest hits. Voice, we're talking about like how to talk about yourself when it's awkward to talk about yourself and the power of formulas. Those are your greatest
Yeah.
hits. So even when you're talking about voice, you could do a nod to both those other ones. The power of formulas, the oversimplification, like however you want to phrase that, that should be a talking point on
Okay.
both of them. Then you can kind of weave that in. But girl, I think you have 3 topics
I
there.
think I do. Yeah.
So the question would be is we need to find something around the formulas to be as sexy and as exciting as the other 2. So my gut is telling me it's less about the formula and maybe we need to lean into the
Yeah.
problem a little bit more.
It's that
Where the formula is more the
y-
how to, but what's the lead problem we want this to really address?
it's really that I don't know what to write. I don't know how to write. When I sit down, I just stare at the page and nothing comes out, or I word vomit all over the page. But how do I art package that into a sexy title? I don't know.
Yeah. So it's I don't want to say cure because that's
Yes.
Marie
Mhm.
Forleo's copy cure thing, right? But it is it's the solution to this is oversimplification, but writer's block
Ah,
or like
yeah.
writer's diarrhea.
Ah, yep.
So maybe not so
Mm-mm.
graphic or
Yeah,
maybe
I'm good
graphic,
with
I
it.
don't
I'm good
know.
with it.
So but that like so you see where I'm going with
Mhm.
that? The topic, you can lean into the
Yeah.
problem
Mhm.
more. Um versus the like the solution. Because I think once you're on a podcast, you telling your story around your scientific background and but specifically leaning into how your brain leans into how do I simplify
Yeah.
this? And you can pull from your experience when you were doing that interpreter edutainment work, right? Is the challenge was how do I take these really complicated problems and simplify them for this
Mhm.
group because they have to master it. That's your whole premise for this idea. And you got good with that. So when you got into copywriting, you learned, oh, these formulas are this, but they're so confusing to
Yeah.
people. Now I make them
Yep.
simple. That is the story that you tell to get people sold on it. But you can start with that more pressing problem they have. The question is, how do we make it
Yeah.
sexy?
I can figure that out, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other on your list that you want to talk through?
I mean, the next one on the list there is like this old dogs can learn new tricks. Like, I started my business when I was 42, and I know a lot of women in middle age are like, I can't start something new. And honestly, it was like the best thing I've ever done. And I would love to empower more women to do that for themselves, to create that
Yeah.
freedom, and to leverage
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm gonna interrupt you because I haven't I just had this idea that I hadn't had before. I've been swirling around in my brain for a while, but I couldn't articulate it right until this moment. Okay. Side note. We're gonna go on a little side tangent here. One of the things as a podcaster myself, I get a lot of pitches from people all the time for the show. And last year, when I rebranded my show from the Heather Sager Show to Hint of Hustle, I made a conscious decision that I was going to be very, very choosy around the quote unquote expert topics. Because what I found is people are doing this, let me go on a podcast road tour and just regurgitating a version of their webinar on all of these. And it was very, very clear that the number one goal these people had was to get in front of my people so they can sell them, which I say two-tiered like coin or
Right.
two-sided coin. It is what we're doing, right? It's why we do visibility. But when other people can sense it a mile away, where it just feels like a one night stand interview, that doesn't feel good to
Right.
anyone involved. So I made the decision that I wanted to interview business owners and yeah, tap in a little bit to their expertise, but I wanted to hear more of their
Mhm.
stories. And so this brings me to my moment of clarity right here. I'm curious, Kim, could we actually organize your guest speaking topics and put them into two lanes? I think I'm going to make this a thing and start
Okay.
teaching it. You're witnessing a moment right here where I'm envisioning like two columns or like two
Yeah.
categories. Category one is like expert topics. Category number two is like, I don't know what to call this, but something about like um unique experience or like I don't know what to call this, but like it's more of the experience of being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur or more of like the
Yeah.
life experiences that are like the backbone of the
Mhm.
expertise. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying here? Because if I were to get a pitch that, yeah, the expert topics, I honestly usually just breeze by them because most of the time I'm looking for referrals. I want to know that people legit know what they're talking about and are going to take care of my people. But if I got a pitch that also had like when I my ears perked up and I was like, ooh, the Gen X
Right.
cusper
Mhm.
thing, that's interesting. It's not your expert topic, but it's like a sidecar topic. You see where I'm
Yeah.
going with this?
Yeah.
So I think your Gen X thing, this old dogs can learn new tricks, and then this last one you have on here, how my annual salary became my monthly salary as a writer. That's an interesting like case study style
Mhm.
piece. So I'm actually wondering if you have categorically topics where you have the expert topics, you have more of these like story-based experiences and or even a case study.
Okay.
That as a podcaster, that would allow me to go, "Ooh, she's got a case study like
Hmm.
example." Like, that would be interesting on the show.
Cool.
Is this making
Yeah, it is.
sense?
It really is. Yeah.
I think it is pretty brilliant. I'm gonna make this a thing, like, you heard it here for the first time, visibility, categories. Yeah, because I love all these topics that you listed here, and these are totally story-led, which you said you really wanna do a lot
Mhm.
more, and it goes to your third strategic goal around impact and reaching more people.
Yep. I like that.
Okay, so do you wanna run with that?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm good with that.
This is where it's like the beautiful part. You're a copywriter, so you can put titles to all these things, which I suck at the titling part. So maybe we're gonna need to collaborate at some point on that.
Yeah, I mean, you've just really given me, the permission to go where I think my heart really wanted to go, and then also the, like, how to do it, and that simple technique of I was very focused on the deliverable, and you've helped me to shine the spotlight on the problem or the challenge that people are facing, and it's sort of like the core of that story, and then it's the how to that is sort of like the little bonus
Yeah,
piece. Yeah.
yeah. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time getting conversions off of their interviews is because when they spend all that time on that teaching, it's like, "Well, I
Oh,
got what
yeah,
I needed,"
totally.
right?
Yeah.
I don't need to download the thing because I now my mind is racing with all of these
Yeah.
ideas. I don't need more, right? Thank you. You've done your job. Versus when you tell these stories and focus on the why, it almost like it gets people like fired up to act. And then they're like, well, hold on. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Let me get the download
Yeah,
from you.
no, and just how you articulated to use sort of that hello framework for about pages, that, like, I mean, that's now a new lead magnet or even like a mini offer that I can sell.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back and summarize here because you have three really good topics, plus now this whole category of like case studies, experience, perspective. I
Mhm.
love that. And the great part about those is you don't have to worry about being all like strategic about those. Those can be play,
Right.
they can be fun. And I would argue from the play and fun, you're probably going to end up booking clients
Yeah.
from it,
Mhm.
right? But that gives you space just to have fun, which I think is really important for us as kind of creative entrepreneurs. But those first three, the voice, the hello framework, and then the formula piece, having some kind of download for each of those, I think that would be gold. And then pairing that with what we talked about, some kind of Instagram DM
Yes. Yep.
and pairing it to podcast list. And again, you don't have to be fancy. I Let me just be very clear. I did not have a private podcast playlist. I had a what we did is we used Buzzsprout for our
Mhm.
podcast, and I had my VA. We You can create tags in Buzzsprout, and we tagged I think like top show or like storytelling. We created a couple tags based around my speaking topics. And then what we just did is we pulled a podcast player out of
Yep.
Buzzsprout with just that tag, put it on a landing page. There is no opt in. and then when people DM me, I just send them the private link to that page. And now I have a conversation
I
started.
love it.
It's not
Yeah.
fancy. I mean, that might sound fancy, but like it's not all about like give me your name and your email. It's about carrying the conversation forward.
Well, and I think that personal connection and how people connect with you when they hear your voice and sense your personality, like that's so much better than some kind of like quick sell, upsell, squeeze page funnel that other people are promoting. I really love that sort of personal connection. So that really resonates
Yeah,
with me.
same.
Yeah.
Same girl. I feel the
Yeah.
same with it. All right, I feel like we covered a lot of
Oh my
ground in an
gosh,
hour.
I feel like I need to lay down, and just, like, metabolize all of this amazing, tremendous, genius that you've just shared with me, so I really appreciate it, Heather. Thank you.
Of course. I'm excited to see you run with it. If you had to sum up your experience on our call today in just a couple words, how are you feeling right now?
I am feeling energized about the possibility. And it's not about, like, what it's gonna do for me, but it's how I'm gonna be able to help more people, and it's that obligation piece, like, I'm obligated now that you've, like, shown me, you've spotlighted it for me, now I'm obligated to go down that path, and I'm excited about it for sure.
I'm excited too. Just like I said, mentioned the energy and you shifted when you started getting super excited about the possibility of these topics. And that's the magnetic quality that really just makes visibility so much more effective. Hey, Kim, thank you so much for having this conversation with me on the podcast. Like this was super cool to do live. I've never done this before. So thank you for being the first to do this. I hope that we do this again. Both me and you, I hope to jam out again, but also I hope to do more coaching on the show. For those like listening who are like, wait, hold on. I love these topics. I want to book Kim as a guest on my show or learn more about what you do. Where's the best place for them to connect?
So, I think the best place to connect is at kimkeel.com. You can also find me on the social channels and shoot me a DM. I'm really like, again, I'm really high touch, intimate, person to person. And of course, if you like learning tips, strategies, and you want to know more about like some of these formulas that I've talked about, my podcast, Ill Communication, is a very short form, bite sized podcast that'll just give you like one formula, one writing prompt, one tip that you can take away. So you'll find that on all the players.
That's awesome. And of course, we will link to all of that below. But I really hope, like, seriously, y'all, if you heard those topics today and want to have Kim on your show or in your audience, definitely reach out and be sure to tell her it came from this show. We made history today, Kim.
Mm, yeah.
All right, girl. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Heather.
Whew, well, you made it to the end of the episode. Wasn't that so freaking good? I am stoked to see what Kim does with these speaking topics. A really cool thing is, since she's a copywriter, she's going to have some epic descriptions and titles for these topics. So I cannot wait to see where she takes it. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, I already had multiple people DM me. Two people say, "Hey, what did she do with you and how can I book you?" And that was just off of her Instagram story saying how fired she was up working with me on this call and how excited she is for her visibility. So now that you know what we did together, if you would like to get my brain on your business, to have me go through and coach you and pull the expertise out of your brain and help run through you through a similar exercise I did with Kim today, you have a couple options, my dear. If you would like to work with me one-on-one, I am taking a handful of people this quarter. If you head on over to heathersager.com, go to the work with me page, there'll be a section when you scroll down around how you can book a call with me. It'll be like a strategy call. This is the topic that we can use for your strategy call. So it'd be a visibility strategy call where we'll dial in your speaking topics. So you can learn more about that at heathersager.com. Go to my work with me page and you can get the latest menu of how we can work together. Or if you'd like to get started on this on your own, of course, y'all know I have a resource to help you get your guest speaking topics nailed down. So if you head on over to heathersager.com/topic, you will find my latest free resource where I help you nail in your guest speaking topics. So go ahead and grab that, heathersager.com/topic. Grab that, get started on getting your perspective, your angle around how you're going to take the world by storm this year, reach more people, get your stories out, and reach more of the person that you're meant to help. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you on the next episode. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Hint of Hustle podcast. That flew right by, didn't it? Gosh, I hope I didn't say anything super embarrassing today, but if I did, it's pretty much on brand. If you loved today's episode, be sure to scroll on down wherever you're listening from. And if you haven't yet left a review, it would mean the world. Hit those 5 stars, tell other people who are prospecting podcasts how awesome this show is. Give us a little love. We would appreciate that. And hey, if you're hungry for more of what we do here on the show, you can peruse all of the past episodes, grab the show notes, and find out the latest free resources to help you get seen, heard, and paid for sharing your expertise. Head on over to heathersager.com. You can also grab the link wherever you're listening to this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.